ነበርኩኝ። ከሱ በፊት ደግሞ ኦራክል የሚባል የኤንተርፕራይዝ ሶፍትዌር አፕሊኬሽን ካምፓኒ ያው ዴታቤዛቸውን ታውቁት ይሆናል ብዙዎቻችሁ። ኦራክል ዴታቤዝ ሲባል እዛ ደግሞ 4 ዓመት ሰርቻለሁኝ። እሱን የመጀመሪያ ስራዬ ማለት ነው ከኮሌጅ ከወጣ በኋላ። ኮሌጅ ያው እንደ ብዙዎቻችሁ እኔም ኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ነው ያጠናሁት። so that's you know TLDR እንደዛ ይመስላል በላይ
Where did you go to college? የት ነው የሄድከው?
So I did my college የተማርኩት MIT ነው. So I did my undergrad MIT, and then it's actually funny. I wanted to go to another school, a master's degree. Again, deadline ትንሽ miss አደረኩትና, so I stayed there for my master's too.
Okay.
The school I wanted to go to was Stanford because I wanted to move out to California. But በዛ ሰዓት some of my classmates ወደ Stanford እየሄዱ ነበር። ግን ያው በዛ እድሜ እንደምታውቀው ትንሽ መንዘላዘል ምናምን አለና ዴድላይኑ አለፈና እዛው it's not a bad, of course MIT was my dream school. ስለዚህ ማስተርስ ዲግሪን እዛ ሰራሁኝ ብዬ ኮምፕሌን እያደረኩ አይደለም፣ ግን that's how I ended up እዛው ያው በጂፒኤ ከረብ ስለሆነ የሚያስቀሩ በቃ ቀረሁኝ እዛ። so እዛ 5 ዓመት ነው የቆየሁት። ከዛ ወደ ካሊፎርኒያ ሙቭ አደረኩኝ where I started working at Oracle ማለት ነው። እና እነሱን እዛም ከዛ ደግሞ 4 ዓመት ቆይቼ ትልቅ ካምፓኒ ደበረኝና ያው ትንሽ ካምፓኒ ገባሁኝ። ትንሽ ካምፓኒ 5 ዓመት አካባቢ ያገዝ ቆየሁኝ። እንዳሰብኩት I never saw that they call it hockey stick growth ነው የሚባለው። እንደዚህ እንደ ሆኪ ወደ ላይ እንደሱ አላረገም። it was mostly linear የሆነ growth. I mean ካምፓኒ አሁንም አለ ተልቋል። እኔ ከሊፍ ካረኩኝ ግን as a software company, one thing you don't want is linear growth አትፈልግም። Linear growth ያረከውንክ it means you become essentially professional services company ማለት your revenue is growing proportional to the number of people you have, which is the cost. You don't want the cost to grow, the revenue to grow proportional to cost. You want it to be almost like in the hyperbole, whatever that function is. This is why software companies can scale much faster and now have much higher valuation without increasing their payroll. So anyway, some company like LinkedIn ገባሁኝ. I was an IC for about, I want to say like 3 years. Then I finally made the switch to management. ከዛ the rest is እንደምታውቀው ነው። But I've been at LinkedIn, I've been mostly in the profile የሚባለው team. If you guys, I'm assuming a lot of you are familiar with LinkedIn, the profile team. So I started as an engineer on the profile team. Then I started leading the profile team. And over the years, I've also assumed other responsibilities. So right now, I run the profile team, the search team, and the messenger team. So when you go on LinkedIn, those experiences, they're breaking, it's probably because of something I'm doing wrong. And I know they were breaking them. Like I think last week we had a incident. So I was talking about I think notification on in Ontario. Messenger also had a VPN, unfortunately.
Interesting. Okay, that's very good. I think one thing that I'm የምቀበለው ነገር when we have ወጣት ስንሆን ምናምን ስንዘል ፊውቸራችን ላይ እንደይመጣ እናቅምና one thing ከዴድላይን ጋር ስትል እኔ had exactly same experience, right? So I applied to MIT when I was maybe ገና መጀመሪያ ዩኒ ስገባ for my postgrad ማለት ነው። እና there is a wait በጣም ረጅም የሆነ waiting list አለና around 2011 ነው 2012 ነው before 7-8 years አካባቢ ለሬጅስትሬሽን ዴድላይን እኔ ማለፍ ያለው ማለት ነው። እና next time I went to Boston, I was like, what waiting list ላይ ብዙ ሰው አለ ምን አቀበጥ አይነት ነገር ተባልኩኝ።
አላሉ Very nice. No, I always say this though, like, the thing about MIT is I tell people, obviously you have to do well in school, but you also need to be lucky. Like, I'm not, I have no illusion that I was not lucky, because a lot of the people that apply are like top students, so you have to also be a little lucky to get in.
Right.
So, it's like I wouldn't just because one of you applied to MIT and did not get in. You shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. It could also be just because you were up against a lot of top students and now like they can't take everybody.
Right, yeah. I think
That's why you have to, if you really have like the qualifications to compete at that level, I think it's critical that you apply to a lot of schools, like a lot of the top schools. Like I mean, MIT is one. I mean, obviously people like MIT. I think maybe because of I don't know.
Harvard, Stanford,
Stanford, Caltech. More syllables.
MIT.
I don't know, but anyway, you have to apply to many of those schools.
Right.
If you are trying to go into I think you have to at least hope, like undoest, you get a little lucky. So
right.
Anyway, that was my intent, my experience. Anyway.
Interesting. So I mean, like for me, I በደንብ understand እስካሁን ከሰራባቸው ከነበርክባቸው ካምፓኒዎች ላይ more or less ብዙ የቆየው ሊንክድኢን ላይ ነው አይደለ?
Yeah.
So like I don't know, for me, what are you interested, like LinkedIn ላይ ምንድነው በጣም interesting እንድትቀመጥ ያደረገ ነገር?
I think that's a good question. So it's a combination of things. አንደኛ it's LinkedIn's mission and vision. So Lenny, I have to really believe in what the company's trying to do. Not on LinkedIn's mission is connecting the world and creating economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. That በጣም resonate ያደርጋል ከኔ ጋር ምክንያቱም I know there's a lot of capable people out there. ስራ ለማግኘት የማይችሉ opportunity የማያገኙ እና like with the right opportunity they could do so much more. And LinkedIn, አሁን ለምሳሌ እኛ ብዙ ስፓም እናደርጋለን ሰዎችን. I mean, I don't know if you guys get a lot of email from LinkedIn. That's like a complaint I hear a lot. And now, for me, the fact that ዘጠኝ ሰው ስፓም ተደርጎ አንድ ሰው ስራ ሊያገኝ እንደሚችል ማግኘት መቻሉ እና that person can feed their family, they can put food on the table, like for whoever is depending on them. That means everything to me. I feel like when I wake up in the morning, the knowledge that I may be helping someone make ends meet means the world to me. So that is one thing that has always resonated with me with LinkedIn. There's a lot of like good tech companies out there. Facebook is another good company, like has been like very popular over the years. When I look at your Facebook and mission and now your LinkedIn mission. Okay, so that's one reason. The other reason is, as a company, I feel like you have like.
Oh, mute on. Sorry, Beth, mute out of class.
Oh.
Hi.
Okay, weird. How did I do that? Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know how much you missed. Did I?
Nah, so maybe just last piece, maybe.
Okay, so that's one piece. Like, what does the mission and vision mean to me? And what's the value that I'm adding to society or however? But it's not just like, it's not, a lot of times companies are built on solving business problems and they find a way to monetize it and not, the monetization part may translate to the same thing. It's money at the end. But how, like what business problem you're solving is also important, like at some level. Like Lenny, it matters. Like it has to be something I care about because it's doing some good. It's making a difference. The second piece is as an employee, and in Marase, like I want to make sure I'm in a company where the culture resonates with me. I'm proud of the way the company deals with people, not just like members, customers ሳይሆን ብቻ የራሳቸውን people. How do we treat our own people?
Yeah.
And now I feel like LinkedIn historically has been a company with a great culture. I felt valued in him as an employee, right? And it felt like a place where I could, I could voice, like I had a voice, and there is compassionate, what we call, like our former CEO used to call it compassionate management. So he was very thoughtful about how we were setting people up for success. And all of these things just made LinkedIn a really compelling place to kind of, hone my craft, grow myself, like transform myself. So let's see. I haven't had a reason to leave. Now, funny thing is, I think Easy. I almost left LinkedIn when I moved because I've been in the Bay Area. The Bay Area, I'm at San Francisco, like Silicon Valley for like 19 years, and I moved to Seattle a year and a half ago. And when I moved, I was actually thinking about making a change. Okay. You were so still in Desivila. I thought you froze up, and I was like, did I?
No. No. But I'm interested when you
yeah. But I mean, some of it's not news to you. But I was actually, of all places, the more you know what company I was thinking about going.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was, and in Easy, we had a few conversations on this because I was going to go to Stripe.
Yeah.
When I went to Seattle. I don't know if you guys like. I'm guessing most people here know Stripe, right?
Yeah, they know Stripe.
Okay. So, and then I actually ended up moving to Seattle and starting a LinkedIn office here. So in the end, I did end up staying with LinkedIn. So it kind of, I guess, worked out. Again, I still feel like, especially when that 10-year mark was coming up,
right.
I was like, man, I can't be at the same company for 10 years. But looking back now, I feel like I can see why I'm still at this company because it's got amazing culture, amazing mission and vision. So, we're still going.
Right. I mean, as you got maybe, for me, I always remind one of the things that the in the market, but when you moved to Seattle, like you were thinking about living
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, and right. But then after all, what they did is Seattle office because of Adelimata.
Yeah, so I actually one of the main reasons I was going to leave LinkedIn was when I moved to Seattle, there was no office.
Yes.
Yeah, LinkedIn office in
right.
Seattle. No, I didn't want to work out of Seattle, Cavite.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing was they already had 300 employees in the Seattle area.
Right.
So it just did not make sense not to have an office. So I told them I would not be a remote worker out of Seattle, and that was one of the main reasons I was leaving. But I talked to our head of engineering, and he said, "Yeah, we can start an office if you want to start an office. Start an office." So that's kind of how I ended up starting the office. And yeah, I mean, just like you, I mean, you think that I thought that was crazy too initially. I was like, "Wow, you start an office?"
Yeah.
I'm just like this Habashar dude. You start this is a big $1 company. And they're like, yeah, I mean, for the right, person, the right leader, we're happy to start an office. And so I even chose which city, I got to choose I mean, they gave me a bunch of buildings. It's a crazy process. Even right now, we're designing floors and, they keep bringing the designs to me and I keep telling them just 2 weeks ago, they brought the designs to me and I'm like, I want a bigger gym because we're building a gym in that, on that floor. So it's a really interesting thing.
Right.
I haven't really had to, I never thought my role at LinkedIn will ever evolve to something where I'm leading a site and I'm making these employee experience type decisions. But it's just another dimension of leadership that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think that the right leadership comes with this type of incentives when that's an interesting thing. So maybe on at least stage when let me take you back in you always ask this question now where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years
yeah.
So the moment ከዛሬ 10 ዓመት ምናምን በፊት ላይ አንተን ከ5 ዓመት በኋላ የምታይበት ቦታ ላይ ነው ያለው አሁን ወይንስ ምን ትቀይር ነበር ምን ትሁን ታረግ ነበር?
That's a great question. Actually, no, I'm not because I think this is why I try to always tell people on Telcom Nagar because as a younger engineer, I never really had that, that kind of vision.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the startup of you. That one of our former founders wrote, Reid Hoffman. I don't know if you guys know Reid Hoffman. He was also part of the PayPal mafia. So Reid calls it the startup of you because you yourself as an individual, you're a startup.
Okay.
And now you should have a plan.
Right.
Become a unicorn and a multi-billion-dollar business. It's a metaphor, right? But it kind of makes sense. And now I never really had that kind of mindset. And I wouldn't know. I think when you've talked to me over the last 2-3 years, what ended up happening is I became responsible for growing other people then I started thinking about like how should people like think about their own futures. And they thought going ራሳቸውን grow የሚያደርጉት ምናምን እና that's when it became clear to me that it was important that we're intentional about where we're going. You know, as a company, one of the things you do is you come up with a strategy, right? Strategy, like what happens in the next 2-3 years, like, you know, like what's the general direction we're trying to go in, and it's informed by what your mission and your vision is for that company. And it's headed in that direction, right? Just like that, as a person, one, andanya, you should have a true north. True north ማለት at your aspirational best, what do you want to be? Like ምንድነው አንተ አሁን ለምሳሌ I mean, one simple question I ask engineers and like that are like still like growing ምናምን is like I ask them, do you want to become like a head of engineering or like at a company, or like do you want to be a CTO? And the reason I ask them, so I know that for Chapa, I actually like, I mean, you're the CTO, but you also like, you know, you're involved in people management type stuff. But I mean, a lot of companies like the CTO like is separate from like, you know, they have two, like this is like startups are like that, and as companies get much bigger, we specialize in two things, right? Head of engineering, they actually run the engineering team, so there's a lot of people management, whereas the CTOs are more focused on technology strategy, right? So I asked them because it's important to start like forming some opinions on, okay, which role like makes more sense to me, right? Do I want to deal with people as you know, as I'm kind of growing, like as I continue to evolve, Ways do I want to become more of an IC that is like very high level IC? Like that's what I mean by the CTO, right? Kind of like I'd still like maybe a little bit hands on, but kind of deals with like large scale like decisions on technology, So it's kind of like important to have like a long term vision and then say, okay, what are the kind of things I need to start focusing on? What are the type of skills I need to acquire that will kind of allow me to put myself on the right path within this one ነገሮች ለመሄድ, right? So you have to kind of start like, even if you're not absolutely sure, like it's good to start thinking about, okay, where do I see myself in like, you know, 5-10 years, and then start asking yourself like, hey, the direction I'm going in right now, is it like leading me like to that? Now, one thing to remember is, you know, this is like, I almost call it like the difference between the greedy algorithm and dynamic programming. Like you cannot take the shortest path to whatever you're trying to get to, right? Sometimes if you decide that's where you're trying to get to, you have to optimize for that. And there may be some things you may do in the short and like you may, like the path is not always going to be a straight line. It may be like, you may have to do something that's maybe even a little counterintuitive to get to where you need to get to. Then long term, you have to still be thinking that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. So sometimes you may even take a step back. In people leadership, someone might say, okay, I'm going to take on a smaller team, like, you know, but that smaller team will be much more strategic, and has the potential to grow. It has more upside, and that will set me up nicely for the next growth, like the next like step function growth, right? So it's a process, and like I'll tell you my own story. 2 years ago, I was running the profile team. So the profile team had about I don't know, like I want to say like 50 people on it, and what I did is I went to my leadership at LinkedIn and I told them, this is the BUF plan. The BUF plan wants to see him leading like a 500 people org in the next like 5 years, okay? The next like 3 to 5 years. And now, looking at my own trajectory, and I mean, I can literally put it on a graph, like how my span of control has grown over time. I don't see that turning into like this. And that graph doesn't make sense. You know? So look at the graph. You're engineers. You know this doesn't make sense. So I don't have a reason to continue like, you know, sticking with this strategy, this BUF strategy, unless something changes. And they were like, you're right, we'll fix it. And they're like, how do we make it happen? And that's how I eventually ended up like expanding my span of control to, you know, to include search and to add Messenger, which more than tripled my span of control, right? So that's how, like, you know, even on a personal intent, and I have become almost አይን አውጣ ማለት ነው እንግዲህ አሁን that one of the challenges we have as Abeshas is this mindset does not exist, especially እዚህ ሀገር ውስጥ not just having that clarity and wanting to know like okay what does that like look like for me, how am I going to get there ብሎ እንትን ማለት is I think especially big companies ውስጥ because you know if you don't do that in a big company you're just going to be collateral damage,
right?
So you have to kind of like you know be very explicit about what you want, and you'll be surprised at the things that happen.
Right.
I mean, you obviously have to be doing your job. They have to want to retain you, and they have to have a reason to want to do these things for you, right?
Right. Okay. There is a and crowd. Let me check. All right. He's muted. Okay. That's quite.
No. I mean, I think on that specific topic, I think so. So I guess my message again, until you asked me, like, did you have that? I did not have that until recently. I've had it for maybe the last 3 years. Like, you know, so that's why I've started like having this conversations with leadership. But I really wish someone told me this when I was a lot younger, because it would have made me more, I think, purpose driven. Like I was just kind of going with emotions, like expecting something will happen. Like, you know, like just I go from one thing to another thing. It was almost like I was just letting like, you know, like I was just like the jalba nagar nabarkuኝ, you know, just letting the waves take me wherever they may.
Okay. With the flow ማለት ነው.
I'll go with the flow.
All right, gotcha. I mean, okay, another thing maybe እዚህ ጋር እንትን የማደርገው I mean everybody had to start with as a nice በለው ሌላም ነገር ማለት ነው before you know becoming you know any type of you know leader or management like ከመምጣታቸው በፊት. So when you see you know CV resume ስታይ ምናምን ማለት ነው ምንድነው በጣም ኢምፕሬስ የሚያደርግ ነገር ለአንተ?
Oh, okay, I love this question because you know that's what I used to do a lot of that actually, right? Because you know I used to hire like we, you know, big companies we have what's called hiring committees. So I used to chair hiring committees, and one thing that really impressed me was initiative. I love to see initiative because you can't teach initiative. People have it, like you can't force them to have initiative, right? So when I see people that like themselves saw a problem and like kind of went out of their way to fix it. Like it could be at a company, like big company, small company, or they actually show the initiative to go learn things on the side.
Right.
They you know build things on the side. That type of like engineer is the type of engineer I'm usually most interested in hiring, because you know I know that they will come and they will up level like the talent in the organization. They will up level the productivity in the organization. So I was always attracted to people with initiative.
Right. Okay. Interesting. ከዚህ በፊት ከዚህ ከግሩፕ ላይ አንተ ጠይቆ የነበረ ጥያቄ do you think people have to be ወይም ደግሞ you know የኮምፒውተር ሳይንስ ባክግራውንድ ሊኖራቸው ይገባል ብለህ ታስባለህ to become you know, a good engineer like you know to be you know a good programmer?
No,
all right?
Not at all.
All right.
Not at all, because the truth is I think what CS gives you is the I think the foundations of like being a good engineer. I mean, yeah, you get exposed to algorithms, you get exposed to like, you know, I don't know what they teach in computer science schools these days, to be honest. I mean, I know they've started teaching databases, and when I went to school, it was very theoretical. Okay, so my guess is things have probably become, like, MIT had a class called Web Services. Okay, the year I was there. They shut it down after one semester. And now the justification given was too practical for MIT. Like, literally shut it down. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how like obsessed they were with like, you know, separating like the applied stuff. So I guess CS degrees in different schools may actually now be a little more practical. Now they may be teaching you skills that, you know, that can be immediately used. And again, at the end of the day, you know, some of the greatest engineers I know are not CS grads. You know, there's like math graduates are physics graduates are because they have that analytical like, you know, mindset.
Right.
It can help you. But the other nice thing about CS, honestly, like, engineering is, I feel like the entry barrier to engineering is one of the lowest out there. Like, you just need, you know, you need a laptop and an internet connection. I mean, I'm not saying like that doesn't cost money, but it's not like, hardware ምናምን engineering, or you need manufacturing ምናምን, like setup, right? So I think anybody with a good mind and strong appetite for problem solving can actually become an engineer. Like they just need to spend the time practicing ምናምን. I mean, I don't know if you know Ephraim. Did you ever meet Ephraim, my co-founder of Larry Zephyr? Huh?
Physics, no?
Physics, no. He's a physics. We went to MIT together. He studied physics. He studied physics and math. I studied CS and math, so we actually took math class like that together. He was someone, for instance, that was an amazing engineer. Like he was so good. Like his level of craftsmanship was like through the roof. Like honestly, there were times when we used to fight because when we worked on Arif Zephan, there were many times we butted heads because he'd be like, "Buff, I don't want us to do it this way because we should rewrite this to be like more extensible." But that's actually an area that's really interesting to me. I am a big proponent of pragmatic craftsmanship. You should not just build things the way they are written in the book. Like just because that's like the best way to do it. You should be doing it in the way that makes the most sense for that business at that time.
Right.
So it's okay to cut corners on Dande. Just know what the consequences will be. Like there'll be tech debt. Like, are you okay taking on that tech debt? I think when I have an issue is like when you don't know what is happening and you just like do dumb shit and then you don't actually know how it's going to have an impact on you, your team, your business. So I think my train of thought there. But what I was saying was,
and someone needs engineer, computer
science. I don't think so. I think it might be good, but like I don't think if anyone here is not doing CS, they should not think that they're not going to be like some of the finest engineers in the world.
Right. I mean, like for me personally, I did physics. I didn't do any computer science.
Oh, there you go. Okay, then So this was like a trap question, anyway. So
I mean, but a lot of times it's like me and you don't need a computer science.
Yeah.
100%. So I mean, you say something about like Arif Zephan just the whole the startup experience So ያንተ ሮል አሪፍ ዘፈን ላይ were you like when was the last time ወይም አሪፍ ዘፈን ላይም ሊሆን ይችላል when was the last time you sat down and write code ማለት ነው መጨረሻ የጻፍከው ኮድ መቼ?
Yeah, so the last time I wrote code for Arif Zephan was probably I want to say like 2 years ago. Actually not 2 years ago. So Arif Zephan, as you know, was something that came out of a passion project. Like it was. So one thing I just want to tell everybody here is like as an IC, one of the things I always try to do was I try to learn either a new language or a new framework every year. So Arif Zephan was something I built for my wife. So just so like we have the full like context. Like she was a nursing student. She didn't have an app like for listening to music. So there was this app called Arif Zephan at the time, but it was just this flash player with like songs uploaded to it, and for some reason the guy who put it there just had it set to random, and it was very frustrating to her because she could not get to listen to the music she wanted in the order she wanted. So I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to learn how to build a Flash app. So I learned ActionScript, and I basically just built like a Flash app that allowed her to save her like and the very first version of Arif Zephan had a picture in the background. Like that's something I think a lot of people don't know. And then she shared it with her friends, and I was like, and they were like, "Oh, this is cool. We'll use it too." And then that's when I was like, "Okay, this is getting a little weird." So I kind of removed the background. And actually, funny story. At some point, my sister sent Arif Zephan to me, saying, "Hey, dude, have you seen this website?" And I was like, "Okay." That's when I kind of knew. I'm like, a lot of people are starting to see this website, and I'm like, I think I know this website because I feel like I might have built this website.
Mutunk.
Oh, okay. I don't know. So did you hear the piece about my sister? I was just saying.
Yeah, exactly. You said like, I'm a built.
So I'll tell you what I did with Arif Zephan. So I don't remember all the different instances. So first year, built it in Flash. And he was using what was he using? I guess it was just like vanilla PHP. And then the next year we built that was still just me. So before Ephraim came on, we built it in I think I used Drupal or something, and kind of made it added a few more features like a forum. I don't remember what I did. This was like 2011 or something. And then in 2012, Ephraim came and was like, dude, we need to build an app for it. Both of us didn't know how to build an app. Oh, maybe he did know a little bit, but he was also getting started. Like, okay, let's do iOS. So we built an iOS app for it. We probably was just like fooling around, but we built an iOS app for it. And then the next year we built an Android app for it. And then, we started for the web page, we started fooling around with some, some PHP frameworks, right? Yeah. And so I remember we rebuilt it in 2, and then we built a very jQuery, JS heavy version of the web, experience that was very responsive, Manamin. Right. That one we actually got some help from someone, but we basically had to finish it ourselves because the dude was started it and then he was he bounced. Do you want to start play? So through all of this, I learned so much because I had to basically now learn how to build an app in iOS, Android. The Flash thing we got rid of soon after that because Flash kind of disappeared. But jQuery, different frameworks, all of that happened. Every year there was something new I was doing, right? Right. And behind, in the back end too, I played in that process. I had to play with obviously a lot of MySQL stuff. It was a LAMP stack. We also did a lot of I did Cassandra because I was trying to do something around reporting, Manamin. Yeah. So I built this thing with Cassandra. It was just every time there was something new I had to do. It was my outlet, because my full-time job required me to stay within the confines of what a big company did at that point because I was at LinkedIn. And so, there was basically nobody that really worked in the back end. I was the only person that worked on the back end, and actually even the front end, because my partner Ephraim he joined a startup in 2017, and so he just said, yeah, dude, I don't have time for this. Right. And there were no other engineers. We used to sparingly use contractors, but we only had them work on very small pieces of the content because we wanted to maintain the craftsmanship by ourselves. And it was we also enjoyed, I think, just building the different features. Uh-huh. So I would say 2 years ago was probably the last time I had to go in and make some changes because every time Apple or someone make a change, the app will you basically get blocked. So I had to keep going in and I don't know, the last thing I did, it might have been removing web views from iOS or something. I feel that's what I did. I think there was a bunch of web views that needed to be removed for some reason. I don't remember the exact reason. I basically killed Arif Zephan, and people were not very happy with me. Yeah. Including my wife. My wife is actually, when I used to do Arif Zephan, she used to be I spent all my time on free time on Arif Zephan, so she was she was not happy with it. Please, and I'm hold up, you're the one who wanted to, So anyway, that was tough, and a lot of people ask me, why did you kill Arif Zephan? Why didn't you, just hand it off to someone? Now, that's a funny story, Easy, right? Because you remember, one of the reasons, we originally met was also because I was actually trying to find people who I trusted, to keep the level of craftsmanship I needed on Arif Zephan. And I was kind of looking around, seeing who could take Arif Zephan to the next level. And I think in Nanta, when I met you guys, it was very clear that your hearts were in fintech. Right. You were very passionate about it, and I think we very quickly realized that's not the right. You guys have your own thing going, and there's a distraction. So that's and some people would say I'm stupid, but for me, it was one of those things where Arif Zephan was never really a business for me. It was more of a passion project, and It allowed me to hone my craft. and to stay connected with my community. And in the end, when it was time, like when I felt like I didn't have the bandwidth to keep maintaining the level of like quality, the level of craft, like Alif Zafan has been like known for, I felt like it was a tough decision, but I felt like that the right thing to do, and I know many people would disagree with this, was to kind of like, you know, just like end it on our own terms, you know, not with an app that was like just broken and people were like, oh man, it went to shit towards the end. We felt like the right thing to do was just like end it and move on, you know. To this day, there are people that think that was the wrong decision. I'm not saying it was the right decision, but for me, it gave me that peace of mind that the way I would remember Arif Zafan is like a very high quality app. The Babaka, that was important.
Yeah, that should be everybody. ሁሉም ሰው አይምሮ ላይም እንደዛው ነው መቅረት ያለበት instead of being a shitty product and
yeah, I mean, like, there were some people who offered to buy it, but like, you know, again, for me, the challenge there was like, if they buy it and then if they kind of completely like, you know, like intend it, like, and the name will get dragged in the bad, you know, just, you know, maybe I'm too prideful, but it didn't feel like, you know, that I was not at a point in my life where like, you know, whatever I was going to get from it was going to materially change my life, and it did not make sense for me to like, you know, just take this, like what I've worked on for 10 years and violate it in some way.
100%. I በጣም እቀበላለሁ። that is that makes a lot of sense. Maybe one more question ልጠይቅና ከዛ በኋላ ከዚህ ጋር ከቻት ላይ ምናምን ማለት ጥያቄዎች አሉ እሱ እናደርጋለን። So I mean a lot of people እዚህ ጋር ያው hire የሚደረጉም አለ hire መደረግ የሚፈልግም ምናምን እንደዚህ አይነት ኢኮሲስተም ላይ አለ. Did you ever like, you know, fire an engineer? Like, you know, have you ever fired an engineer? Like, in the what made you, you know, I don't know, to become have that type of mindset that I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, of course. Did you say fire? Or is hire?
Yes, fire. Like
okay. Hire and fire sound the same, right?
Yeah,
very different things. So, I mean, yes, I mean we don't call it firing. We call it managing out. So to be clear, I have never fired an engineer. Like, because when we say fire, is generally it implies that there was either. Oh, did we get disconnected?
No, you're good.
Okay. Fire, by the way, when they use the word fire, generally what fire implies is it's not performance related. It's usually there was something egregious that happened. Lamsale could have been sexual harassment or you stole something. That is a fireable offense. So you are fired on the spot.
Okay.
I've never done that. Okay, so no. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with that. You have to literally walk people out, like, you know, with their stuff, like, you know, right there. I've seen my manager do it once, but never me. And that's the only time I asked my manager why. He never told me because it's actually super confidential, like why that would happen. I have had to manage people out though. Manage people out is when there are performance-related issues.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of PIP, IG improvement goals, then PIP performance improvement plan. So LinkedIn is terrible. Okay, I'll just come out and say it. Like historically, it's taken like anywhere from like 3 to 9 months to manage people out, and we're trying to get better at it. And I've had to manage people out, and generally it comes down to like you know, at a big company, there's a pretty standardized way of measuring performance. And Alam Sali, LinkedIn uses the same rubric. It's called LEC, Leadership, Execution, and Craftsmanship. And we rate you on a scale of 1 to 5 on each one of those. And 3 is meets expectations. So if you're meeting expectations and on all 3, then you're good.
Right.
No, then far exceeds, and on the other end is like meets most and doesn't meet. I mean, doesn't meet is like that's like you're not showing up. Like, I don't know, maybe you're not even like, you know. So if you're not meeting expectations, generally what happens is your manager will try to help you. You know, focus on the areas of opportunity and try to get back to like, you know, meeting. And if you're not showing that, you know, when that happens, one of 2 things happens with the engineer. Some engineers, like, they just like they see it as a challenge, and you know, they basically just start like slamming it because maybe it was for lack of effort, and they just start slamming it, and then they can get back up to a 3. Because I know a guy who I once rated a 2, and you know, and then like a year later actually exceeded and got promoted. So it was obvious that he was sandbagging, right? He was just like finished lazy on another, so he needed a finished reminder. And then there are others, like there was this one guy, I mean, he had a PhD according to his profile, like God knows if that's true, because he sure as heck did not sound like someone who would have been able to get a PhD, just like his work ethic, and that, we had a lot of issues with this guy to the point where, you know, he would take a leave of absence, but he would take like 2 months off, like in the middle of his PIP. By the way, that's very common in this country. Like when people get put on PIP, the first thing they do is they take a leave of absence because it's a legal issue. They can do that. They don't even have to justify why. So, you know, in the end, it was clear that like he was not going to be improving. So we had to let him go. In fact, it was kind of messy because we couldn't even get him to come to the office to let him go. So we had to basically send him like mail. Since we cut off his email, like, you know, so that was one that was like pretty shitty, excuse my language. But for the most part, I think the people we've managed out, it's been, you know, just a situation where like they didn't have like the right set of skills to succeed in that role, like, and they just continued, you know, like I don't know if they tried hard enough. I mean, they probably could have done more, but it just wasn't a good fit.
Right.
One thing, one of my the CEO that I had at the startup once told me was, and I think I've mentioned this to you, when I asked him about letting people go, he told me, "Oh, it's my favorite thing." I'm like, "Good Lord, man, what is wrong with you? That's not like a good thing to say." And he goes, "No, I think the letting people go is like the best thing because I know that's not gonna work for me, but it's not working for them either, and I'm wasting their time. So I actually think it's a win-win for everyone." And I'm like,
100%.
That's a different way of looking at it, I guess. But you know, it kind of makes sense. Now, you know, with a big company, obviously, there's always going to be people coasting, manaman. So for them, it may not seem like a win because that's an easy check that just went away. So
exactly.
Yeah.
But 100%, like if you want to make an impact, and I know. But if you just, you know, keep tripping around with it, like, you know, you just have to be somewhere that you actually, you know, gonna go make an impact, and instead of, you know, just I think let me read a couple of questions here. Because it's like, you know, I think Chappie was saying the more you know about coding, the less you write the code. Yes, I think yes and no. Lenny, Pep, do you agree with this one?
Sorry, say that question again. I'm trying
the more you know about coding, the less you write the code.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Yes, to some extent, yes. Like, this is actually a challenge we have at my company. It seems like the more, like as people kind of, like, move up the levels, they start writing less and less code. And I was actually just talking to my CTO the other day, and he was telling me how he's now going to start making it an expectation that every principal staff engineer. So LinkedIn has like, I think 6 levels of engineering, like I see, starting from software engineer, senior staff, principal staff is the 5th one. And then you have distinguished engineer. I guess you have 7. There's a fellow too. So up to principal, he felt that it was important to have an expectation that people write code. I mean, I have a principal staff that reports to me. He writes code. You know, and I mean, he actually comes to me and says, I need more time to write code because I'm being pulled into so many different things across like the whole organization that I'm not getting enough time. So there are definitely, I think, you know, the nature of your role will evolve, and you just have to review more like technical strategy documents, more design documents, and it just naturally makes it harder for you to write code. But I don't believe those people should be able to write like less code. Like, I mean, let me frame that. Like, it's not that those people don't know how to write code, right?
Yeah.
You know, and don't want to write code. Like, it should be like because they're adding the best value by not writing code. So I want to be clear. Like, we make that distinction.
Right. Yeah. That I agree. But when it comes to startup level, like the most you have to.
No.
That's a different story.
I startup, you know, everyone has to write code, right? Like, otherwise, because you know what happens is when you get into a big company, when you go to big companies, everybody, like, they can afford to have specialists. Like, you can have someone that specializes in this, that specializes in that, specializes. So essentially, you have someone now who's specializing in just like looking at high-level designs, high-level intents, because of like the wealth of experience they've acquired, and they can kind of work across like a breadth of like, you know, like intent, real estate.
Right.
Yeah, they're not really going to be going into like the hands-on stuff, right? So that's a specialist to me. Small companies cannot have that. You gotta put on so many different hats. Like small companies, like startups, right? Everybody is like, so everyone is kind of a jack of all trades. Like there's no like you don't have a lot of specialists per se.
Right. Yeah, that's
a lot of generalists. Yeah.
That I do agree. Johannes was saying relationship goals. I think it's for Arif that's missing.
I'm sorry. What is it?
He was saying relationship goals. Like, you know, I think he said you built Arif for your wife.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I know.
Okay, that's right. Okay. So another question is, why did Arif Zafan have to be discontinued? I think you answered this one. Why did Arif Zafan stop? Okay, this one is still another question. Let's go now. So I think there was another one from Brahanu. Okay, Brahanu was saying software engineering is moving to almost the no-code platforms. What is your opinion? And what does that take us? I know learning how to write script is always the best thing. I think it's very long one. Because I'm always come on.
I mean, honestly, I don't have a strong opinion on this, but I do know one thing. Even when we're building Arif Zafan, we thought about using the graphical interface for Xcode versus like writing out the code when we were building the app, because we built everything native. So I mean, in the end, like, yeah, we felt more comfortable using the code because it just felt like it was more like it allowed us to just more easily like maneuver around, like, you know, how the layout was being built, like, you know, everything. And I know that there are like amazing engineers out there that actually know how to build like really good applications with graphical interfaces. I guess, like, to me, the question becomes like LinkedIn, for instance. I'll give you guys an example. There was a time when auto layout was not working well for us on iOS. So we built our own library called Layout Kit, and we had to basically build like our views to use Layout Kit.
All right.
And I don't know how people know what auto layout is. Basically Apple's standard way of like laying out the views.
Yeah.
And it was good for like most apps, but when you get into like complex apps, right, then it starts becoming performance issue. So we basically decided to build our own like Layout Kit library that was used. In fact, like funny stories. Recently, I think we realized that like LinkedIn, Apple's auto layout has gotten so much better. So we're now getting back, like So, but the point I'm trying to make is there are times I think you can get away with just using like the GUI like for designing your app, whatever. When it's like within the confines of what that system can support. But there will be times when you simply cannot like rely on just that to build like a high performance app, right? So you got to figure out like when is the right time to do that and when is the right time to actually write 100% put it out yourself.
100%. So Chappy is asking, what do you advise for entry-level developers that are trying to get to a level of senior developers and architects, and how should their learning journey should be like, and what do you do in LinkedIn to skill up developers?
Yeah, so the first question, there's a few questions in there. So actually, where is like who asked that?
I did chat like.
I know who asked that question. So
okay, it's Tamrat Wargu.
Tamrat, okay, I see it. Okay, got it. Okay, so I cannot, just wanted to have a question for me. So entry-level developers, okay, I'm going to say like exactly what I said about like learn something new every day. Like, sorry, every year, have a goal for yourself. What new language am I going to learn this year? Or what new framework? Like, do not go a full year without learning something new. I mean, honestly, if you have the time, you should have an even like loftier goal. Maybe make it 2 things, right? Because when you're younger, you're like a sponge. You can absorb more. So try to just pick up as many things as you want, as you can. That way you can you can just have you can learn to have like many different perspectives on like how to solve these problems, because different programming languages, different frameworks, they may all be trying to solve the same problem, but they come at it from a different angle. So it will just make you a more complete problem solver. So that would be like the biggest advice I have, and that goes back to what I said also about initiative. That shows that you are, showing the initiative to self-educate, to level up. Like, so just do that. And the second thing is, how should their learning journey
Should be
like? So yeah, I mean, the learning journey, I think it just has to be something where you continue, like the best way to learn a language, in my opinion, or to learn some new technology, have a project.
Yeah.
Just build something, find a project and say, okay, I'm going to build it using this or that. And that's like literally how we ended up coming up with like all these different features on Addis Zephyr, because every time it was like, let me learn something. I mean, look, I even came to Addis Ababa. Like, I don't know if I ever told you it's easy, but I figured out a way to integrate it with like using short code. We found a way to sell music on our Android app until Tele figured it out, and they were like, hold up, what you guys are doing here sounds sketchy. Like, how are you able to do this? And they shut us down. But we were like this close from like selling Teddy Afro's first album. His first album. I don't know which one it was, like some 5 years ago. Like, we had already, like, Teddy has always been one of our biggest like supporters on Arif Zephyr. And now we basically were like this close to like selling his album on Arif Zephyr until Tele like got wise, and they're like, no. I think they just wanted, like, I won't say it, but anyway. I'm not gonna say this.
They are our partners and now.
Yeah, I know. So that was a different time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, find a project, like, find a problem, something that you would get satisfaction from solving, and go learn a technology and like use that technology to try to solve that problem. That is always the best way to learn.
Right.
And then the last question is, what do you do in LinkedIn to scale up developers? I mean, what we do is we go like, so two things. One, there's obviously like, they have access to courses. LinkedIn Learning, things like that. There's actually like Lamsalihan, if you are interested in AI, we have an AI Academy at LinkedIn that's run by like our data organization that they can go like, participate in. It's funny you said that. I'm literally about to launch a program for like our larger organization where engineers that have interest in AI can scale up on AI, so they can actually help with like some of the machine learning infrastructure work that's happening across LinkedIn, because there's a real shortage of AI engineers right now. The second part is, even within like their like engineers would come to us and say, hey, I've been an Android engineer for a while, and I've always wondered like about like the front end, like the back end, like the front end like service that is feeding me the data, right? And now I'm curious like about like like all these payloads that I get, like I want to know how those are built. So can I actually like spend some time learning about the API development? Is that something like we can make work with like my primary like responsibilities? And we are excited when people do this, because it creates a lot of redundancy.
Right.
So when people come to us and say, I'm interested in doing A and B, we're always happy to find a way to create that space for them. So that's something like that happens quite a lot. So we have a lot of engineers that start out doing one thing and end up being working on different parts of the stack. So versatility is something that we prize a lot, and we encourage actually among our engineers.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. Then the next question is Tom King, which is Chappy. He is saying usually Ethiopia have really great developers, but rather the opportunity is so small, which is so competitive. In your view, is it because Ethiopia, which is low development, where the developers are not trying enough, that the opportunity is so small?
So, just to understand the question, when you say the opportunity is so small, you mean in Ethiopia or ከኢትዮጵያ ውጭ ማለት ነው?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what Ethiopia was saying. I don't know. Chappy, unmute.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. መሰል ጥያቄ በጣም ቴንክ ዩ ፎር doing this and now my question is for Ethiopian developer like ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥም ሆነ ኢትዮጵያ ውጪ ሞስትሊ ኢትዮጵያ ውጪ የሚሰሩ ስራዎች ለኛ የሆነ ትልቅ ናቸውና ሶ እነሱ ስራዎች በጣም ኮምፒቲቲቭ ናቸው ማለት በጣም ስሞል ዊንዶው ናቸው ያገኟቸው ሰዎች ማለት ነው ሶ is it because of Ethiopia have like a low economy or something like that but or ደግሞ ዴቨሎፐሩን በደንብ ትራይ ያደርጋል ያንን ኦፖርቹኒቲ ለማግኘት
ቻፒ የምትለው ስራው ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ብቻ አይደለም ውጭም ሊሆን ይችላል ማለት ነው አይደል
anywhere in the world
okay yeah I think you know I honestly feel like some of it is also just I don't think people out there think of Ethiopia as an you know outsourcing like destination ብሎ የሚያስቡ አይመስለኝም ብዙ ሰዎች you know like India I think it took some time for India to gain that reputation right like it wasn't always like that you go back like 10-15 years ago I'm sure like Silicon Valley companies were not very comfortable like just outsourcing to like independent contractors in India nowadays it's become much common I mean I literally like my company has like a contract with this company based out of South India where we have to rely on their engineers like a ton and what we've learned over time is like these people are very capable like I mean sadly sometimes we feel like they're more productive than our own engineers it kind of makes us like wonder like what is going on here you know so I think it's about like I think it's a function of time honestly like we just have to show lemsale like honestly like if companies like Chapa like are able to like put Ethiopia on the map like on other like people's radar that's right it's all you know easy it's all on you it starts changing the perception people have about Ethiopian developers right I mean what is like tell me one like a lockdown and so what like Ethiopian developer we need that like 1 or 2 or 3 success stories to kind of get the ball rolling then I think perceptions will start to change via Savali and then people will have a sense of like what can be done Kazi
100% በደንብ አድርጌ እስማማለሁኝ okay another question is okay I think Darran ጥያቄ maybe since በፊት ስለምታነበው
what notable shifts have taken place in corporate hiring practices and trends over the years so you know it's funny so you know I want to say a lot has changed but it hasn't like it's actually it has been very stagnant you know people talk about you know like you know lead coding like how does it really like tell you how that person can be effective in that role I completely agree with everyone I don't think it does but have we changed it no not really now I myself have been involved in some instances so one thing we have been trying to get away from though is like when we bring Lemsale mobile engineers we take them through the same lead code type you know panels that we would use for a backend engineer or some other engineer and now one thing that became clear is like when you are like Lemsale an Android engineer or an iOS engineer there are actually questions we can ask you to more accurately determine if you really know what you're talking about Lemsale about iOS or Android right so one thing we recently started doing is we've kind of moved away from those types of questions Lemsale on LinkedIn generally when you interview as an engineer there is a CA1 and CA2 modules የሚባሉ አሉ coding algorithms 1 and coding algorithms 2 and one is more like you know just to understand you know how to code 2 actually goes into algorithms so you get like crazy graph questions like dynamic programming questions like honestly nobody like here is convinced those things add value but it's just the industry is as a whole has been built that way and now we're trying to change some of that Lemsale for Android engineers and iOS engineers I believe we've now eliminated CA2 so you know people don't have to understand and how to solve the problems because it's important to dig into their Android and iOS experience and see like can you review? Like, what are the things you would have to do? I think just a general like movement towards trying to make the interview more tailored towards the skill sets that individual brings.
Okay.
But I would say we're still like so far away from making, having like efficient hiring practices.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, there is another one, maybe Kafraud. It's I don't think it's a question. It looks like
Probably it was a comment.
Yeah,
like
comment.
And, if Raul wants to elaborate, maybe if there is a question in there.
Okay, Raul. All right.
I feel like this might have been also a reaction to Zach's recent comments, but let's move. Yeah.
Okay. There is a question from Johannes.
Okay. So, what was your experience as probably the only one software developer from Africa? Also, what do people feel like when they're given orders from an African? It's actually a funny question. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I guess, let me think. Yeah, a lot of times I've been the only guy, the only, African in the room. In fact, the only black guy in the room. And it hasn't been, so I got used to it when I was at MIT, because most of the time I was the only black guy in the class too, right? Like, most of the time, K-frame, Gamanam, Sinon, every now and then, but, that's not all most of the time. So I kind of got used to the idea that I was going to be the only one in the room. So it was not really like a huge adjustment for me when I went into the workforce. Having said that, I think there is definitely like moments when you realize how people are just like, they don't expect a black guy to do certain things, because there have been many people that never realized I was black. Like, that told me, I didn't know you were black. I thought you were Indian all this time. It was actually a very common mistake they made. And I was like, I don't look Indian. Like, why would you think I'm Indian? And it's like, I had this female engineer that used to report to me, like, this was many years ago, 5-6 years ago, when I was a frontline manager. And then I used to go home every December, like for 3 weeks. When I came back, she was like, what? So I'm like, hey, Olivia, how are you doing? So she was like, she's Chinese, born and raised in China, and she's an engineer. And she was like, so where'd you go? I was like, I was in Ethiopia. She's like, oh, that's so cool. Ethiopia is in Africa. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. She's like, what were you doing there? And I was like, oh, I was there to, see family, and I have this thing that I do there. So she's like, your family live in Ethiopia too, your parents? I'm like, yeah. She's like, have they been there for a long time? And I'm like, yeah, you could say that. Yeah, they were born and raised there, because, they're from there. She's like, that I could see that, like, look on her face. She's like, oh. I'm like, wait, hold up. You didn't know I was Ethiopian? And she's like, no, I thought you were Indian. From that moment on, one of the engineers on my team, he was a clown. He started keeping a list of people that thought I was Indian. Actually got to like 12 or so people before he got bored and said, you know what, Buff, it's pointless. So, there's, I don't know if it's like,
bad internet.
But I guess it's kind of funny to me. I don't get offended easily. Now, as far as like, do people have issues like taking orders from me? Absolutely not, man. Actually, it's funny. I'm a very approachable guy, I think. So I have the highest number of like mentees like across like my peers. People want like come up to me saying, I want to be mentored by you. And part of it is also because, especially since I went into management, I've been very fortunate and I have had a very like fast trajectory. So everyone is like, what is your secret? And so I actually get more people coming to me like than like, a lot of like my Indian or white or Chinese peers. So much though, like I've now been asked to cut down on the number of my mentees. Like my assistant wants me to cut down on the number of my mentees because she cannot manage my calendar anymore. It's like you have too many one-on-ones with like people like outside of your org. So it has not been an issue at all. Like I think the nice thing about Silicon Valley is like, or like tech in general, I feel like it's like it's a meritocracy, like to a large extent.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky like to have sponsors that have invested in me. I mean, who would think like they would open an office in like Seattle for like the black guy, right? Like,
yeah.
And I actually talked to my CEO about this, and I told him, by the way, Ryan, I know I'm moving to Seattle, and he joked about it. He was like, "You mean like you're moving to Seattle, like so you're kind of forcing us to open an office there?" And I'm like, I don't think that's how it went. And he was like, "I'm just messing with you, man." But yeah, he's like, we're so happy to invest in you, like so. Just excited to see what you can do in this new market. So, I have not felt like ever, like I've never ever felt that race was a deterrent for my growth. In some ways, actually, I'll tell you the opposite. Sometimes I worry, like, do people value me more because I kind of I'm different and I'm like, there's some invisible quota maybe. I don't believe so, but one thing I'll tell you guys is like, if you start operating at some level, if anything, your race could actually help you more. Like, so don't look at that as a deterrent. How does one climb on the corporate ladder? I can see we have an aspiring VP, which is good. So it's simple. The way I tell my mentees is because when they ask me how do you continue to grow so much, two things. One, be intentional, like what I told you earlier. Have a clear plan of where you want to be. Two, being effective in a big company is about building social capital and using it wisely, spending it wisely. What does that mean? Help people. One of the reasons I mentor so many people is because, I like to help people grow. And if you help people grow, trust me, it will come back to help you in some way. Because a lot of these people now, they want to work for me. They're like, hey, can we come be part of your team, etc. And honestly, it gives me access to talent a lot of my peers don't, right? So I can be picky about who I bring over to my team. And the other thing is even when you work with partners, leadership stripped down to its bones is making people around you better. Always remember that. This is actually very important in a startup. When you're in a startup, you look around the people next to you and try to help them. You may not know everything, but there's an area that you probably know better than they do.
Right.
You help them do that. They help you do that. There is a symbiotic relationship. You both up leveling each other, and now you basically be looking to each other for support and to lead in some areas, lead in some other areas, and that's what leadership looks like. So for me, I'm always ready to help others in every way I can, and I have noticed how that really, really helps. Now, obviously, some people are dicks. You're going to help them, and they're never going to help you. That's okay, though. I'm not always expecting to get help. You go back to them, they're like, nah, I can't do it. Whatever. But you keep helping people. I do believe humans are inherently good. I'm a humanist at heart, I guess. And you are going to in the end up being better off for it. So that is one thing I always preach. Help others, and good things will come your way. And last but not least, just make sure you're not being outworked by anybody. Work harder than the hardest, the person works the hardest.
Right.
You do these three things, I think you'll be fine.
That's 100%.
Yeah. They're so staying okay.
Yeah.
I assume the COVID lockdown popularized remote work. Most people think remote work is the best thing that happened in the IT industry, or if it's on remote work, and how do you think that? Okay. So, this is again one of those things where if there is if people have a stronger perception of the quality of engineering coming out of Ethiopia, I don't think it's going to be doing anything that we haven't already done with India. If you're talking about time zone, both India and Ethiopia are on opposite sides of the world from the Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
So really, if we found a way to make it work for India, we can make it work for any other any other geo. So I think the fact that things are being remote are definitely going to accelerate geo dispersed teams. I don't think it's happening as fast as most people anticipated, and I don't know if it will. But I know even LinkedIn work, and then between the macro that has made
freeze አድርገ ነበር።
I see. So I was saying between the COVID lockdown, between the macro that has made hiring a little harder, like companies are trying to control costs. I think there is definitely an opportunity to hire more folks like overseas, just because it's more cost effective, right? So I do think Ethiopia's day is coming. I don't think it's here now, and I don't know if it's just 1 or 2 years out, but in like 5 to 10 years, I would not be surprised if you saw more and more tech companies looking beyond India and China for affordable outsourced talent.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of them recently እያነበብኩ ነበረ መች ዛሬ ነው ምናምን even part of I think major part of the ChatGPT was like Kenya ላይ እንደተሰራ ምናምን የሚል ነገር አይቻለሁ. A lot of people hiring from Nigeria as well. So think the day is coming. Yeah, the day is coming, of course.
And last question, Johannes, do you think ChatGPT will take over jobs? Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure it will. Like, the question is what? So ChatGPT is really good at like taking a lot of information and like synthesizing it into like the roles at very high risk right now.
ተቋርጠ ነበር የኔ ብቻ አይመስለኝም እኔ ጋር ብቻ አይደለም ቤት ቢቋረጥ
Yeah.
You were cutting off.
Okay, sorry. I was just saying, yes, it's already happening. I think with customer service type jobs, ChatGPT can take a lot of information and distill it into like a answer for specific questions you have around that trove of data, right? So I think that's happening now. If the question is asking, will it take over engineering jobs? It's not very clear yet, right? Because ChatGPT knows how to like take information and synthesize it. I don't know if it knows how to like lemsale take a system and scale it, or kind of deal with like all the different things like engineering concerns that come up in the life cycle of a product. So I don't think that's what I feel like people are like sometimes like they make ChatGPT something like that it's not. It's just a very smart like aggregator of data and like a really nice like LLM that like a very advanced LLM that can like give you human like answers on that data. So that's still like a far cry from like doing like advanced engineering like solving advanced engineering problems, I think.
Yeah, I think very soon ChatGPT could be true junior engineer and software developer ሊሆን ይችላል, but like going up like that maybe not really.
But at that point it's like more like scaffolding type code name but like it's like based on like patterns
Right.
So it may be able to do migrations, it may be able to do stuff like that, but the moment it comes to like a human actually like reasoning why this doesn't make sense given like this types of intents it may not always have like that specific set of answers that you're looking for. So but maybe like our guys at the guys at OpenAI might prove me wrong. We'll see. Also forgot, man, Johannes is like he's a prolific
yeah, I had a lot of questions.
Okay, also forgot. What do you think is the bottleneck for Ethiopian tech industry? What do you think can be improved? I mean, obviously, like from my own experience, I think hopefully this is getting better, but I don't think of the Ethiopian startup ecosystem necessarily being, conducive, like in a way that the Nahon Lamsali Kenya is. It was a challenge for me to set up a company here. Like honestly, like coming here, setting up a company, getting the business up and running, getting access to the right kind of infrastructure. All of that was like it was not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, like I told you, like I literally had to leave because we solved the technical problem and they created problems that we didn't need. So we said, screw it and left, right? So it's one of those things where I feel like the government can actually take steps to kind of make that a lot easier for startup founders, etc. So more and more people can worry less about what it takes to set up a business and focus more on like solving the problems, right? So to me, that is, I think, still like one of the bigger issues. in terms of like, I don't know. Like, to be honest, I think you guys probably have a stronger opinion on this than I do. I haven't been to Ethiopia in 3 years. I'm trying to change that this year.
Well, it is. Yeah, I think for me, you say the same thing. For innovation, ምናምን ቀድሞ ህግ የሚወጣው ነገር አለ። ስለዚህ as an engineer ደግሞ as a problem solver, የህግ ወጥቶበት እዚህ ታንቀ ምናምን ከባድ ነው። So, but yeah. Okay, there is another question from Antenna.
Yeah, I already, so I can answer that one. So yeah, I think I definitely, that code like strongly resonates with me. And as an MIT student, man, I was just focused on like getting through like the next problem set. Like that was really what I was focused on. I was not thinking that far ahead. The goal was to just survive the institution. So the institute. So I honestly did not have a lot of like, planning. I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like thankfully, Oracle came on campus and they basically just interviewed a bunch of us and offered me a job. So I just ended up joining them. But I was not very, let me put it this way, I was not street smart, like, and that's one of the challenges I think with like good students. Like they could be book smart, but you may not be street smart. You're not really planning ahead. You're just focused on like, just doing what you need to do right now. So I think my advice to the students here is, like, yeah, it doesn't, like, I mean, you guys are already a step ahead of me because I never attended a chat like this when I was in MIT. Like I never, like, the only thing I attended was just, like more like technical lessons when I'm in talks, when I'm in. So, like, start thinking about your career. I know it's early, but like, okay, what will I do? Like, how do I want to, like, how do I want to, like, chart out my next 5 years when I'm in? It's not too soon to start thinking about that. So, and in terms of what set of skills have been guiding you since then, I would say the one thing that I learned at MIT that I still like care about the most is missing deadlines. I do not like missing deadlines. Maybe it's a bit like, maybe I sometimes worry that it's actually, and it's almost like OCD level intent, but I do not like missing deadlines. Deadlines do, like, it's not to say I haven't missed deadlines, but I think I always try to set expectations when I'm, like, something is happening. So, like, because, they say, like, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation, but, like, just a few minutes to lose it. So, as engineers, one thing I do advise you to do is, like, your reputation is everything. If people around you respect you because you have, like, a reputation for, like, meeting your commitments. Like, I believe in this. Like, people say when you make a commitment and then you break it, the person you're disrespecting the most is yourself. Because you're giving someone your word. And if you go against your word, what you just told that person is like, my word doesn't mean shit. So they now know that your word doesn't mean shit. So they basically don't trust you. So one skill I really, really advise all of you to have, and this is not confined, I guess it's not specific to engineering, be careful about the commitments you make. When you say, I will have this done by this day, make sure you are planning to get it done by that day. If you're not, give your peers an early heads up why you're not going to get it done by that day, the new ETA. Like me as an engineer, this is why I won't like jive well with a lot of people. Like, especially, I hate to say this, in our community, I feel like there's a lot of underappreciation for the importance of deadlines. And I think it's super, super important that if you don't think you can do something, you should start getting comfortable with saying no.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it. The biggest problem I see, they want to say yes for everything and then they don't always deliver. So please, like, the next time someone asks you, can you do this? And you don't think you can do it, just say no. Or if you think it will take longer, just tell them, yeah, but, I need more time. I will try my best is never a good answer. To me, I will try my best. It means no, but something else. Okay, so just say no. That's like one life skill that I would give to a lot of people. I would share with a lot of people. Life is what happens. Okay, so I think I'm stuck in tutorial. Haley, I wanted some guidance on this problem. Like, for me, Okay, so I don't know if I have a lot of context into what challenges Khalid was going into. So
I think he is there is a meme and I'm like internal pointer variables a lot of times it's been watching.
Okay, I think easy got you. So I'm gonna move on. Beef. Wait, beef, no, sorry.
Exactly. I thought it was beef, by the way.
No. By the way, Easy always calls me Beef. Just so we're clear, my name is actually Befak Adu Ayeno. I don't know if...
I don't think he'll be responding to Befak anymore.
Poster nonde.
No, I mean, Pastor select whatever.
Yeah. Befak Adu name nonde.
Never, Miro. I know I respond directly.
I mean, no, obviously Americans cannot say my name. Befak Adu name it. So, there's stuff in there I don't want to hear. So.
That's not good.
That's not good. So that's why we kind of... All right, so as the Senior Director of Engineering at LinkedIn, what are your thoughts on the advancement in language models and their potential? Okay, so this is obviously still new. Don't worry about Ethiopia being far behind in the industry. I mean, if you mean specifically, as it relates to ChatGPT, GPT-3, LLM models, then don't worry about it because everyone is still behind. And I love how the guy said this question was generated by ChatGPT. So Beak, I guess what I'm I think it's still a little too early. I don't know if you guys heard, but it looks like the Y Combinator, half the. I heard more than half the new startups that are ChatGPT based. Right? Yeah, that's crazy. But I can see why everyone is so excited. I mean, I literally had two of my coworkers give their notice in the last 2 weeks to go work on their own ChatGPT startups too. So it's happening everywhere. I think my advice is if there are people in this room that think there's practical applications of ChatGPT that they see solving real problems with real world real life impact, then I think you guys should play with it. I mean, the nice thing is it's built as a platform for a reason, so everyone can jump on it and start using it, right? So, I mean, nothing's stopping you. I in terms of what are my thoughts on the advancement of these models, I think they still have quite a long way to go. They look good, but there's definitely room for improvement. There are definitely questions answers that I have seen that make it clear that this thing doesn't know what it's talking about.
Right.
But I think for the most part, accurately enough in a human life form. So it's, I think, I do think it's an inflection point in how we do a lot of things. It may be one of those, a lot has been written about it so far, and I think the excitement is not fully undeserved. Again, I also feel it's a little I don't know, ትንሽ በዛ ትንሽ hype was. I think ትንሽ I worry that we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves. So that's my those are my thoughts on that topic. Okay, for Ethiopian.
Okay, that was I think maybe to my explain Chappy is okay, Sami is asking about this happening.
Yeah. So no, I have not. Actually, I'll tell you one time I went in to interview this guy, and as I walked in into the room, he was looking behind me to see if the interviewer was coming. And I walked in, and I think maybe he thought I came in to clean the room or something. I don't know what he thought. But it was really funny because he kept looking. Instead of meeting me, he kept looking behind me. And eventually I had to tell him, hey, Rishi, India Nabara, I'm actually here to interview you. Funny story is we actually ended up hiring this guy, but he was not very good. Maybe I should have known at that moment that, but he did okay on the interview. So he did actually quite well. He was pretty senior. And we had to eventually he moved on because he knew he was not growing. So, but that's the only time I can ever think of race ever becoming a thing. Now, funny story is he was actually darker than me. So So that's also funny, right? Like, I don't know. So there's a lot going on here that I can never understand because maybe that's not what he was thinking. Maybe I was overthinking it. But anyway, so no. But I've never really seen someone like overtly, like, show their prejudice towards me. Like, I haven't.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
About VCs in Ethiopia, if there is any, and about how hard it is to build scalable, massive apps in Ethiopia in terms of skillful system architect. But yeah, so for the first part, I don't actually have a ton of insight into this topic. I'm sure like people like Easy can actually like, weigh in this like a lot more than I can. Like I have never really, like one thing with Arif Zafan, like I said, we never really thought of it as a real business. So we never tried to raise. Funny thing is, a couple of like, we had people approach us and say, we can invest in you. And our answer was like, no, we're good. Because, I mean, I never intended to work on it full time. So I just I didn't think it was fair to take people's money for something that I was not going to be like giving my 100%. Yeah, it just felt, like, I don't know, sketchy, like to do that. So I don't know much about the VC scene back home, to be perfectly honest. And how hard is it to build scalable, massive apps in Ethiopia? I mean, hard. I mean, I don't know if it's. I guess it depends, right? Like, first of all, do you have the users? Like, the question is like to have like that kind of scale, to want to build that kind of scale, you need like like there's different like there's levels to levels. When we think about scale on the profile page, is close to 1 billion people, right? Like members using it. So, I mean, what are we saying? Like Ethiopia is to be able to start to really start worrying about scale. Ethiopia, you have to have like millions and millions of users, right? And sometimes coming on site, like at least a few million users, like using like hammering your services like at the same time. So I don't know if we have use cases that already have those types of demands. If you're talking about I know in the Easy, like you guys have already done some things that get a lot of volume.
Yeah.
But I still don't know actually like what the QPS is, the queries per second. Like, I don't think the QPS is at a point where you have to worry about like scale, like the way we think about it, in some of the big companies. But it's getting there.
And it's getting there, yeah.
Getting there. When we start getting there is, I think, then, there's going to be, that's where I feel like, engineering becomes a much, much different ball game. Like, that the types of ChatGPT, cannot even fathom, right? So you have to start making all sorts of optimizations, both hardware, software optimizations. And those are things like that a lot of times also requires a little bit of trial and error, a lot of tweaking. So, yeah, I mean, I think, when the scale comes, I feel like, I don't have any concerns about the quality of the engineers, at least down having talked to Easy Manaman. Like, I feel like the know-how is there. It's just a question of like, dealing with it when it arrives.
Yeah. Okay, by the way, we're going, but ከሰዓታችን
I know. It's okay. We can try to wrap up by 11. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you and I have a follow-up meeting. Maybe we can do it in the afternoon. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah.
If you have any questions for Bugs, you can put them. Oh, okay. So how do you keep the drive and fire going for so long and maintain a work-life balance? Okay, so this is one thing that's actually, it's a very good question. I don't know if I'm actually very proud of my work-life balance. That's one thing I think I could have. I'm not a role model when it comes to work-life balance. Let me put it that way, and that's not something I'm proud of. One of the reasons I actually let Arif Zafan go was because I felt like I needed to create a little more space for myself. But I still feel like there are definitely evenings. One thing that you just have to accept, and I tell people, like, I have some directors like on my team that want to get to the next level, and the one thing they complain to me about is like, I just feel like I have a lot. Like, even on nights, there are times I just don't have time during the day to do anything other than meetings. And if I need to review docs, if I need to write stuff, it has to happen like in my own time. And the one thing I tell them is like, like if you want to get to senior director, if you want to get to VP, what ends up happening is your span of control only grows. Our CEO, if he sees anything happening on the profile, on search, on Messenger, he has messaged me on a Sunday morning saying, hey, Buff, someone sent me this message saying that, when they do this, if this is happening, do you know what's happening? And I have no freaking clue what's happening. But you're essentially on call, right, for everything.
Yeah.
That from your Cantabela Yemelso, like if they know you, they're like, oh, I can just go directly to the one guy that can fix it for me. So essentially what that means is whenever there are issues on any one of these orgs, like you have to be involved in some capacity. You may not be actually like root causing and solving the problem, but you need to have line of sight into what's happening across a large swath of the organization. So with that, you're making a conscious decision that you're going to have less work-life balance. So what I tell them is like, if you think you don't have good work-life balance now, it's going to get worse if you move up, because then you have to cover even more. So you just have to accept that, at some level, you kind of and one of the funny things is engineers, ICs have this perception that management is an easier job. And then the staff engineers become managers and they immediately start complaining that my work is following me home more than it used to. Well, that's just the way it is, right? You're just responsible for more things. So I don't it that actually sounded more like a rant than an answer, I guess. But I can't complain. This is the choice I've made. But I do not consider myself, a role model on work-life balance. But in terms of how to keep the fire and the drive going, for me, it's not that hard because I'm always trying to be better than I was today. And this is something that I did not necessarily, I did not feel as strongly for many years. I was just, like I said, just going through the motions. But now, since I started to make goals for myself, I know that I have to keep getting better and better and better what I do in order to achieve the goals that I'm setting for myself. So.
All right, you're on mute, Beth. You talk.
Indeed, no.
I don't know. There's some ChatGPT ምናምን መጥፎ ነገር ስታወራ መሰለኝ ሆነ።
Well, ChatGPT is Google Echo. Sorry, it's Microsoft. They should be happy. Maybe Flutter ሳረጋቸው ነው መሰለኝ እንትን የሚሉት. So anyway, I guess what I was saying was, if you're just constantly trying to improve, then you're going to keep challenging yourself. And the other thing is, I just believe and I enjoy what I'm doing. That also makes it a lot easier to stay, excited about my work. That's I guess the long short of it. What advice do you have for people working on a tech startup in Ethiopia in terms of building a product that fits the market? Actually, easy. I think this might be a better question for you.
Go ahead, but you have also experience with Arif Zafan.
Arif Zafan was a very interesting startup. We never had engineers in Ethiopia, right? So, literally all the work was done outside of Ethiopia. In terms of I think what I would say is it's not specific to Ethiopia. Again, I would say always find a business problem. Don't rush to find a way to make money. Find a real business problem, right? And solve that business problem, and I guarantee you'll find a way to make money off of it. Because if it's solving a real problem, then it will always there will be some way to monetize it. So as far as building a product that fits the market, I think my advice is, again, not unique to Ethiopia. Again, just keep iterating. Do not worry too much about craftsmanship. Just build a prototype, put it out there. It's important. Time to market. Just minimize that. Get something out there. Test it. If it doesn't work, iterate. If it doesn't work, fail quickly and like pivot to something else. Do not just like stick like to something just because you've already invested a lot of time into it. That's why I say prototype. Like, do not like build a polished product without knowing that there is product market fit, right? So, just throw it out there. Like, you will know quickly, like if it works or not.
Right.
So, go ahead. Antas the
yes. I think for me, also, I always say this. First you have to find the problem before you just sit down and write any type of code, especially as an engineer. So make sure for me, if there is a problem in that, no problem exists in the understand character, then definitely provide a methodical solution works. And the other thing is especially product that fits a market. Always ask myself, will I use the product that I'm building? So you have to be the first customer, you have to be the first client of you. Because that while monetize matter is not a problem, because every time at least stage like I'm getting a bad experience with there was this building and that you made material so would the Zingo the Zanga material problem, they have a problem, all right? So if this all katama chachella, they'll be to put you on so that's because that's all like a minga saka so if you charge a little bit of money, you can make money out of it. But making money when you monetize Maragan business, it's first, start from yourself and your friends and the community, and I'm in the Yarake or the scale Yarake. So make sure you use your product first before you let them when you tell other people to use it. That's
yeah, and one thing I would add is like I think engineers can have a little bit of a God complex. We have this tendency to say, well, if we can build it, then we can like build anything and we can make anything work. And I bet a lot of engineers in this room probably don't have the highest regard for business people. And that is one of the hardest lessons I've learned in life. Like, I used to think of business people as like, man, come on, man. You're just like, I'm creating the real value. You're just like out there, just like, hand waving. The truth is, if you are one of those engineers that just believes, look, I'll figure it out. Like, yes, some of them eventually do. They get lucky on, I know there's a lot of Zucks out there, like Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, But, for every one of those engineers that succeeded, there are like a million that did not, because they didn't really have like a good business plan. Like they haven't thought about what's the real problem I'm trying to solve. Like, why am I unique? Why am I uniquely positioned to answer, like to go after this problem? So you really need to think through some of the business problems, and like if you don't have like the experience, it doesn't hurt to at least get somebody else to also like think through some of those with you before you spend a ton of time on something.
Yeah,
that may not make sense. So that's my only advice. Like, hard lessons for me.
Yeah. Don't think because but I'm go as programmer doesn't mean that like you're gonna be a good business, whatever,
No.
Try to just so make sure you have the right person.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Sami was saying.
Yeah. So this one is like, so just to be clear, Sami, generally layoffs are not performance based. They're supposed to be based on business decisions about divesting or like just divesting from parts of the business, right? You choose not to invest in that side of the business, so you're essentially saying, I don't want, like, this whole division is no longer needed, so I'm going to let these people go. So like the word layoff is technically not related to related riffs, right? So now I know there's been a lot of confusion lately, like Facebook is saying I had layoffs, but it sounds like they did pick some underperformers. Now I think companies do it for they're trying to protect those people by masking it as a layoff in some cases, and then in some cases it's part layoff, and then they're also kind of throwing in some underperformers in there for good measure. I've heard something similar on the Microsoft side. Like Microsoft recently had layoffs too. So I say Microsoft, like we're part of Microsoft, but yeah, LinkedIn is not technically, like we have our own set of, like we haven't had layoffs. because we are an independent business like under Microsoft. But Microsoft, again, secondhand information, I've heard similar things. Even though they call it layoffs, there is some, like, I think, performance-based stuff. And how do I feel about it? I think I actually like getting rid of underperformers. Like, I think that is a much better approach to cutting costs than like laying off an entire division, which may include like high performing, like Rockstar. So if I was the guy doing it, I would actually be. And here's why they don't, like, sometimes they don't do it that way for like there's, I think, there's actually like legal implications, at least in the US. I think financial implications too, obviously, and then like, you know, the third thing, like the reason I think I think we should do that is like some companies already have a pretty, like, they don't have a high enough bar for performance. Like, there's some slackers and coasters that are just sitting around getting paychecks that they don't deserve. So in those situations, I'm all for getting rid of those people, because those people, they're actually, it's unfair to their teammates, because their teammates have to do more work because of them. They're not carrying their weight. It's unfair for the business, because the business can get rid of them and hire, like, there's a lot of like good engineers on the market looking for jobs right now. They can hire someone else. So if you really think about it, and then they also set a bad like example for others at the company, because, you know, if they see someone just like not pulling their weight and still doing work, still getting a paycheck, they may start thinking, oh, maybe I can do less and get away with it. So overall, like, I'm all for like having a pretty strict performance management process. So you know, layoffs is more of a financial decision that doesn't really have anything to do with performance. So I don't really have a strong opinion on it. That sucks, like, when companies get to that point. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to cut down on costs.
What advice do you give?
I'm noticing, like, the questions don't. Like, I just saw that.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Like the last, like, yeah, some 10 questions are added. Can we actually? Can we?
I think the last question should be the quantum, because it's 58.
Yeah. I thought I was going to be done at 11. I actually had to take my son to a soccer game, so.
Okay, we have like 5 minutes to just do it, alright? What do you think is the last question?
Getting on about which one were we at? Like, Sami. So okay, let me find Sami. Okay.
Okay, Sami.
There's a lot of questions. Okay.
Big data set to scale. That is the Cypher Lofi.
What? Okay. So.
Okay.
To scale. Just know the technology out there, right? Like, you know, make sure you're using the right set of technologies. You know, big data is a thing. It's been around for like some time now. There's many, like, you know, many different solutions out there. You know, if you're talking about like scaling the group, I think that answer to that question is no different from any other company, right? Just like be careful about who you hire. I say it's for any startup. Like, startups should be very picky about who they hire, because each person that comes in is going to be doing a lot. Like, their role is going to be, you know, very significant compared to a big company where you can hide. You can go in there, be a low performer and hide. You can't do that so in terms of technology, I don't really have, like, you know, my experience is actually not in like big data scaling. As you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but like within my company, we build our own databases. Like we use Espresso. It's a home. Like we have our own data stores, like, that are supposed to handle that kind of scale. We have our own graph databases that are supposed to handle that kind of scale. When you are like a company on the size of LinkedIn, you need, like, whatever is out there in the industry may not work for you. So you end up building your own custom solution. So I don't necessarily have a lot of like good answers for you, what to do, what not to do. I've played around with some document stores myself. Obviously, different databases, you know, Oracle, MySQL. Sure, like, you don't really have to go, like, I don't know what kind of data this is, structure, unstructured, but you don't have to. You can use MySQL, like, with a lot of scale these days, you know, with the right type of indexing. In fact, like easy, is that what we use?
Exactly.
Right. So, I will leave it at that, since we have a lot of questions. What are the recent engineering stacks that have a need for developers? So, like I said, one area that has become like more and more like popular and just needs a lot of people is AI. I don't think that's news to many of you. That's been the case for a few years, but now with the advent of like like LLM, like new LLM models, it's become even more important that you have like more AI engineers that can build models, tune models, so that's kind of an area that's really hot. Another area is like mobile. And this one is interesting because I think smaller companies don't need to hire native apps, but big companies do. And there's just a real shortage of like mobile engineers in general. I feel like it's always very hard for us to find mobile engineers. And so that's like, I think that continues to be the case, Dahonu.
Yeah.
Do you recommend an online master school for someone with a thriving tech business who still wants to learn? No, I don't recommend an online or like offline. Sorry, like offline wallet and on-site. I had like, honestly, the only reason I did my master's was because I was just there. Like I happened to be there in G. I did not get any value out of it. So, I mean, others may disagree with me, but I do not, I don't actually tell people to go to their masters.
I do agree. I told Kaduse is like, but I just give up on your master's. I'm glad in a post-grad I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, unless you're trying to academic.
Yeah. Kastanachu mamar turno biya maso.
Yeah, I don't think, so just so you know, the way we hire people, it doesn't matter if you have a master's or not. Like, there's almost no, there's absolutely no difference in the amount of money we pay people. I just hired the first black engineer in Bellevue. That's Seattle, the Seattle office. Seattle office, Malatino. I mean, Bay Area, like this new office we started. We now have like 110 people here. So she's actually a master's degree student. And I was looking at, like, I don't generally take interest in like what we're like giving to our entry-level engineers. I did look at like what we were offering her versus others, and like then one thing I noticed is like absolutely no difference between a master's degree, a master's grad, and a bachelor's. Now, money's not the only thing, obviously, but you need to think about the opportunity cost. Like if you were there learning on the job instead of being in school, like, doing like a thesis or something you may not actually use. Like, if your goal is like to grow as an engineer, like where do you stand to gain more? I mean, I think to me, it feels like, the on-job training is probably a better path for you.
Yeah.
And you get paid for it too, so that couldn't hurt. In what ways can an engineer leverage LinkedIn to advance their professional career and achieve greater success? So the two ways. One is obviously like, I think networking is going to help you in general, like, just having a network that you can lean into when you're looking for opportunities is always a good thing. If people know you, they would be more open to having conversations with you and, kind of seeing if you're a good fit for whatever they may be doing. Now, having said that, just staying connected is not good enough, in my opinion. I think the one advice I give people, like on LinkedIn, is talk about the things you're passionate about. If you're like someone who is a front-end developer, and if you have thoughts on technologies that you find interesting, patterns that you find interesting, if you start like posting about those things, if you start writing about those things, people will start like thinking of you as more than just a name with a face. They start thinking of you as that guy who actually is passionate about that and like has like his own opinions, like her own opinions, and thinks about those things. So that's when you actually start to create this brand for yourself on LinkedIn, right? So at that point, when people start thinking about, okay, who are the people like that we may want to work with, like, who have this kind of experience, you may be on the short list of names they come up with. So that's how I think you can use LinkedIn as a professional social network to advance your own careers. Now, in terms of like skilling up, though, there's obviously LinkedIn learning courses you can use. I don't know, like, if all of them are free. Like, actually, I should know this. Like, yeah, I'm saying like you always need premium to have access to all of them. But I don't know if some of them are free. Is what I meant to say. Like, I don't know if you need access to premium to access all of them or not. But if you can, I think there's a lot of like great courses on there. whether it's AI, just a lot of there's I think tens of thousands of courses tech alone that you can probably leverage. Moving on to Dara, in what ways can an engineer leverage LinkedIn to advance their? Oh wait, that was the one I just did. Okay, Leo, for those of us that are trying to build a tech startup, what do you advise us? Again, I think we kind of touched on this. Like, have a real business problem to solve. Don't just be engineering minded and start coding without really understanding what you're trying to solve. And it would be good to get some, honestly, before you spend a ton of time, get some input from others, like, business minded. Why does this make sense? Why is this solving a unique problem? Like, why is this like something worth spending time on? So do that. And then the second part of that, like, just to reiterate, was don't build a polished product. Like, just build a prototype, throw it out there, and get some market validation before you start polishing it. And by to get a polished product out there, to just because of the brand you're building and stuff, which is fair to an extent, but don't, you need to very clearly define what polish means at that point. And you can also just say, this is a variable, so people can start playing with it and see how they feel about it. So that's something I would just advise all it doesn't matter where you are, all startup folks. Is there any other custom solution that LinkedIn had to build for performance or other reasons? For performance, Malits.
I think
I'm guessing this means okay, that kind of performance, right? I wasn't sure. People performance management. Okay, so for performance, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with Kafka. We built that. We built a bunch of. So we actually have a pretty active open source community. Like LinkedIn participates, builds out a lot of things, and we open source it. So, if you look at Lamsali Profiles database, it's called Espresso, and it's built on top of MySQL, but it has a lot of multi. So, there's Espresso. We have key value stores that we've open sourced. That I used in a lot of instances. We have analytical stores. We have one called Pinot, very high performance analytical. So they crunch numbers. Lamsali, if you guys know the feature Who Viewed My Profile, that's built on top of Pinot. That's also another one of our own things. We have caches that we've built that allow us to do caching across sessions, within sessions, because of how many people use the flagship app. We've had to do many different optimizations, so we have themselves a cache. In fact, one of the issues we had last week that I mentioned earlier was because the cache was having some issues. It was working away in a way that did not exactly jive with the use case. So we have, there's a lot of stuff we built in-house. Now, am I a fan of all of this in-house innovation? Yes and no. Sometimes yes, but sometimes I also think we have a tendency to over-engineer things when there are already, good off-the-shelf solutions that we can use. So the other advice I have for you guys is never build your own thing unless you really, really have to. My guess is you can't because you're a small company,
right? And
that's a blessing in disguise. When you have a big company with a lot of very ambitious engineers, it's sometimes easy for some engineer to say, you know what, I can build something better than the best thing that industry offers today. Yeah. And it kind of becomes a huge money time sink for everybody, and it happens more often than you realize. So just be careful about that.
Yeah.
Okay. In addition to Samsung's questions, we have the best developers in Ethiopia, but universities have some skill issues. Do you think we need to add more boot camps, cert programs, campus-based online schools from abroad? How can diaspora engineers get involved? Or do you recommend learning from online platforms? I like the question, how it starts with this supposition. We have the best developers in Ethiopia. when you say we, like across the world ማለት ነው ወይስ like this group ማለት ነው?
as in Ethiopia as Ethiopia መሰለኝ።
Okay, as Ethiopians. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't actually have a lot of expertise in this area, to be honest, because I don't know what's taught at universities Ethiopia. To say like that I don't know if it's like the educators that are lacking skills and experience. Huh?
No, echo.
Okay. Like so boot camps, cert programs, campus-based online schools. I mean, absolutely. Like if you can take advantage of a lot of those things, like it couldn't hurt. Do we need to add boot camps? Yeah, I think so. I mean, boot camps are great at like training engineers, skilling them up, but I don't actually know how effective they have been in Ethiopia. But they've been quite effective. I think a lot of engineers are able to launch their careers. Like people that have non-traditional like CS type backgrounds have been able to leverage boot camps to get into tech. So, it all depends. Like again, it goes back to like how committed are you to it? How passionate are you? How much initiative you show? But it's a good way to get started. So I feel like it's a very loaded question, and I'm not doing it justice. But I'm also not really very experienced in this area to give you a meaningful answer. So I'm just going to move on. Keep it moving.
Let's do it.
Okay, Brahanu, to also acknowledge Ethiopia's devs in the world market, the way. So again, this I think I touched on this earlier. It's about like building a brand.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not like there's a bad perception about Ethiopians. There's no perception.
Yeah.
Because like we're just not like we're not on the radar.
Yeah.
We have to be on the radar. Like we have to actually start people thinking about Ethiopian like developers, Ethiopian companies. That's I think the key to starting this like this trend of like others looking to Ethiopia for talent.
You're right.
Okay, Brahanu, trying to find schools that can help us partner in Ethiopia. This is, I mean, a good question, but honestly, I don't have an answer right now. I mean, I think it's something we should probably explore. I don't have an answer, so I mean, saying I don't know is like my favorite thing. I really don't know. Okay, Temkin, Brahanu actually asked what I wanted to ask. What do you recommend is the best way to teach and grow the engineering community in Ethiopia? Or the best thing that we can do? I think I already kind of addressed this, I guess. Like it's more, it's just a more detailed version of that question. I would say just focus more on the more practical like skills. Boot camps are great, but more above and like beyond anything else, the key thing is I recommend that you guys spend your time teaching, like you spend your time building things. Just build things. Go out there and build things. And, that's the best way to learn. Like nothing else will teach you better on how to solve specific problems is always interesting. But you can only get the most value out of it if you use it in the process of like solving problems to build something. Then you'll go and feel much more satisfied and even more energized to go learn more. That's my advice. Anyone can mute you.
Okay.
That's why, so people are muting me. Okay, I see how it is. Okay. Thank you very much. LinkedIn started adopting Rust. We used to use like Rust. I don't know if we still. Oh no, sorry. I don't know anything about Rust. My bad. I was thinking about Dust templates. Just Rust. Okay.
Okay. What is your stack? Java, no? Muslim account? Maybe since they I think mute Arab account.
I guess somebody's tired of me. They're all like, we've heard enough. Like, yeah, our backends are like almost all Java. We might have a few things like I use Python, but it's almost all Java. And our front end is using for web. We have this. We're on Ember. That gets a lot of flack, and we're actually now like starting to explore like some things on React. So there may be more and more like yeah. I mean, stay tuned. I mean, I guess I can't say much. This is still something we're like that's in the nascent stages. On Android and iOS, we use on iOS we use Objective C, and a lot of Swift now. We just rebuilt a profile on Swift, but a big part of the app is still on Objective C, and on Android we have I would say 50-50 Java and Kotlin. So that's what our stack looks like.
Okay.
I actually don't know what Rust is, so sorry I can answer the question. But
it's Java and something mixed up.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah.
No, I mean maybe I'll go to research it at the end of that is sometime today.
Maybe next year, like every year, program so next year you can learn.
That could be my next thing, right?
Yeah. I think the big problem is how do you keep silent about LinkedIn and what do you recommend for such things to talk about?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that to I always say, I like to live at the intersection of our engineers' dreams and the company's business objectives. The best way to motivate engineers is to make them feel like they're learning skills that are making them better. So they're making them, win, and get closer to whatever goals they have set for themselves. Because ultimately, the projects they work on, they will fade in time. In 5 years, they're not going to remember every project. What will stay with them will be the skills they learned and the experience they gained, so they can go on to become even better, build better systems, better applications, better products. So the key is to find what their true passion is, what are the things that interest them, and then have them work on those things in the service of meeting the company's business objectives. So they're actually working for the company, building the company's helping the company grow, but in the process they're growing themselves too. So now it doesn't feel like they're just they're not just mercenaries for hire. They're actually helping themselves grow. So I think that the sweet spot is finding that intersection of the two. What does this engineer want to do, and what does the business need? So if you can find that intersection, that's where the magic happens. And
Interesting. And there is a question would you recommend to start Java?
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't actually. I haven't. So I think.
What do you recommend for start?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think. Sorry, am I muted?
No, someone muted me. You want to mute Okay. He's actually.
So I think the question I gave was just a little more general. But in terms of just retaining talent, I think one of the key things is to have an open mindset as a company where people can actually experiment with new technologies to the extent where it doesn't become a distraction, right? We need to see if it makes sense to use new technology, to solve the company's problems, the company that to advance the company's goals. If you're trying to solve for a problem, it makes sense to use technology as a means to an end. So you don't want engineers to be there just to kind of play with the latest and the greatest just for the sake of that, right? But if there is an opportunity to actually leverage that to solve questions in a more meaningful way, to solve problems, then then it totally makes sense. Everybody gets to win, right? So I think part of the trick here is finding ways to give people that kind of freedom, creative space, so they can go out and figure out what makes the most sense for us, for this company, and in the process they can learn new things too.
All right. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I think what do you think about quantum computing? But there is another one funny question in Milan. So
yeah, I guess I don't know what funny question is. Is that the quantum computing ማለት ነው?
No, ከዛ በኋላ ጽፎታል. I think funny question ብሎ ሌላ I'm no code developer.
Oh.
Right?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. By the way, mute ያደረገኝ ሰው አይቼዋለሁ. Byron or something. Byron. More investigations are on.
So yeah, I don't really have I don't have a lot of thoughts on quantum computing, to be honest. I have not seen it applied.
The project, maybe early stage, maybe 20 years before AI and then because we don't have even the capability machine የለንም, quantum computing on the
right.
large scale matter. But for me, I feel like, in the next, 10 years, we probably not going to have in the laptop quantum computer, I know that and we might have an access to something like in the cloud computing, quantum
Right.
computing access that I think at that time, like, my
Yeah,
it
could be.
Yeah.
You
Right.
close up, I think. I agree. I think it's probably a little ahead of its times. I mean, and I don't know if people have really figured out, like, where, like, how, Narco, like, there's, like, hardware, like, constraints, like, that they still need to, like, we need a lot of innovation around to make it a scalably on a technology solution. So, I mean, I don't know if there was a question behind the question, but yeah, it's too early. I think it's still like
Yeah, it's very early.
Yeah.
Maybe again, at the time quantum computing mature ሲሆን የዛ ሰዓት maybe in the chat GPT አይነት generative models will replace የሰውን activity ብዬ አስባለሁ ወይም ደግሞ የሰውን intervention.
Yep.
Yes, my intent. Alright, the funny question, I'm not a code developer. I use SwineScript. Could I call myself a software developer and can I get a job?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know, like, if it's funny, really, but, like, so I think it depends, right? I if you're talking about, like, getting a job at, like the big companies today, it'll be harder because the entire interview process is, like, based around writing code.
Right.
So it's going to be hard. So it's like, can I be, like, a no-code developer for a coding job? No, I mean, probably not. Can you call yourself a software developer? I think so. I mean, you are developing software, right? Like, why wouldn't you? But you may also have to, you may have to kind of, like, find opportunities where you can leverage, like, those skills to build the right type of development. I mean, the right type of software, right? So, but I mean, in a lot of ways, like, every job is not for every person, and you're not that different in a sense, but you still have to go find, I think, the right opportunity. So, like, two questions. First question: are you a developer? Yes, I think so. You are a developer. But can I get a job? Yeah, you can get a job, but not every job, right? Like, there will be some jobs that require a different set of skills from what you have.
Yeah, I mean, instead of being Lenny, my suggestion would be, like, instead of developer no code developer a development job ከምትፈልግ ሌላ ቦታ ላይ ሆነ you use this skill, maybe it might make sense, but you can call yourself as a developer because people ራሳቸው ብዙ ነገር identify ስለሚያደርጉ. But እኔ personally I wouldn't hire. I don't think so. ግን ሌላ ነገር ላይ if there is any skill, ለምሳሌ some sort of problem solving ላይ ሆኖ any type of no code developer ከሆነ ግን I would love that. That's
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't hire that, like, because your job requires people that are writing code. So that's it.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, development roles are like that. But I mean, the thing is, if you can build your own software, lamsali, was just like, then, like, and if you're able to ship it, and if it has business logic, if it has all of that, then I don't see how you are not a developer. Like, you literally just ship, like, a software product, right? So it just, you just have to find the right role now. I guess that's my intent.
100%. So I think we're done here. Beef, አንድ ሰዓት ብዬ almost like 2 ሰዓት ከ30 አካባቢ ነው የፈጀነው. Thank you so much on behalf of the community, myself and Java and everybody here. በጣም እናመሰግናለን. I think we all ብዙ ተምረናል ብዬ አስዩ ማደርጋለሁኝ ከበብ.
Thank you.
If you guys want to keep this conversation ከዚህ በኋላ we probably have, like, I have, like, maybe 15 ደቂቃ ምናምን. Babe, thank you so much. I know.
I really enjoyed the chat. Thank you for moderating, Easy. And it's just so exciting to see so many engineers, just coming out of from my Agarachin. I have never really, like, connected with Ndazi community on this scale. So it's really exciting to see so many of you here, and I think there's just a lot of talent in this room, and you guys could be, like, Kadem Dalkut and the Reid Hoffman, the PayPal Mafia, and the Mibalo. just like that, I'm sure there are people in this room that are going to go and do amazing things that will transform the face of like Ethiopia and so just really excited. Just keep working hard, and you got people like Easy in the Z, like that are already like slamming it. You got so Baka, we all aspire to grow up and be like you someday, Easy. So ሁላችንም በቃ እንዳንተ ለሆነ
okay ካሳረል በፊት ቀደም ከያም
anyway
thank you so much for that.
All right guys,
so we can have ours we'll text you later.
I know መልካም ምሽት. I know መተኛት አለባችሁ, so I'm gonna let you go.
All right, yeah, thank you so much guys. If you want to keep this like for a little bit longer እና ሌሎቹን ጥያቄዎች ማድረስ ማድረግ ከፈለጋችሁ we can keep it like for 10 minutes 15 minutes.